Good morning, everyone. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbat of song, because the Jewish people sing the song of the sea, Az Yashir, and it's a very joyous and special Shabbos. Many communities have a custom of bringing in a great cantor to make it a very joyous Shabbos. We have cantor Matzah the Shabbos because it's a Shabbos of singing and song in honor of the song the Jewish people sang when they crossed the sea. And tomorrow in shuls around the world, we're going to rise up and stand at attention as the Balkorah reads the song of the sea, and we'll all chant along and envision ourselves crossing the sea and singing a song of joy and praise to God like our ancestors did 3,300 years ago. But there's an amazing lesson our rabbis teach us from the very first word of the Az Yashir. Even if you don't remember the whole song, if you know the first word, you have a lesson that every day when you say Az Yashir, because it's in our daily prayers, you remember this lesson. Our rabbis say the opening word of Az Yashir is Az. Az means at that time, at that point in time, Moses and the Jewish people broke out in song. Our rabbis say, why does the song begin with Az? Then, at that point, at that time, Moses sang. It should have just said, Moshe and the Jewish people sang a song. Our rabbis say that little word Az is very significant. If you go rewind the tape to the first time Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Paro, on the instructions of God, and says, let my people go. What does Paro say? Nothing doing. I'm not listening. I'm not releasing the Jews. On the contrary, the reason you're complaining is because you have nothing to do with your time. The Jews are lazy. They have too much free time. Tichbad avodah. I'm going to make the workload harder. I'm not going to provide straw. They're going to have to fetch their own straw and fulfill the same quota of bricks. Moshe Rabbeinu walks out of Paro's palace. He's devastated. And he turns to God and says, why did you send me? Why did you send me to make things worse for the Jews? And Moshe Rabbeinu says the following words, Ume'az, from the time, Bati al Paro, that I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, God, you not only didn't rescue your people, but you made it worse. Why did you do that? Now Moshe Rabbeinu is singing a song of praise to God after the 10 plagues, the Exodus, and the splitting of the sea, crossing over and the Egyptians drowning. And now he realizes that when he complained to God and says, Ume'az, from the time that I came to Pharaoh, you made things worse, he was lacking faith. He didn't see the end of the story. He didn't have the proper faith and perspective to realize how this would all end. So he rectifies his mistake and his sin by using the same word that he used to complain against God. God, why did you do this to us? And now he says the same word, Az, but to say, now I understand and I give thanks to God, Az Yashir Moshe. And the Maralmi Prague says, what's this? How is this lesson embedded in the word Az? And he says something beautiful. He says Az is 2 letters, Aleph, which is 1, and Zayin, which is 7. Aleph, we always know, represents the one God, the one and only, number 1. Zayin represents the world of nature, 7 days of the week, 6 days of work, Shabbat. He says we always have to remember we live in a world of 7, nature. Everything looks like it has a natural course. But we have to remember what precedes the Zayin, the 7 days of creation of the world, 6 days of creation and Shabbat. What precedes the natural order of life? Hashem, one. And Hashem not only put nature into place, but God is the master who controls nature. And that was what was evident at the splitting of the sea, which he didn't realize at the time Paro refused to let the Jews go, that the Aleph is in control of the 7, and therefore never lose your faith in God, even when things are difficult. I'm going to tell you a true story that I heard firsthand. When we renovated the shul, we had the old furniture that we wanted to donate to another shul. So I put up a posting, if there's a shul that needs benches and a beam and a Aron Kodesh, we had a whole set of furniture that we had. A Chabad rabbi from Coral Springs was just then renovating a new Chabad house, the Chai Center of Coral Springs. And he contacted me, he said, I could use it, I'm moving into a new building. His name is Rabbi Hershey Bronstein. Him and his wife Chani established a Chabad in 2005, and this is 2013. They're moving into their new building, 10,000 square foot building. He came up, he saw the furniture, he was very grateful. They had truckers come, and right now, if you go to the Chai Center in Coral Springs, you'll see our old furniture there. And he's very grateful. So he told me, how did he get his new building? An amazing story. He had a little storefront, 1,000 square feet in a shopping center in Coral Springs. And in the corner of the shopping center, there was one big freestanding building, 10,000 square feet. It was a restaurant there. And one day he sees the restaurant goes out of business. A week later he sees a sign, it's in foreclosure. Wells Fargo put it up for foreclosure. He says, this is my dream, a beautiful 10,000 square foot building. So he gets a lawyer, they contact the bank, he puts in an offer for $1 million. They say, we're sorry, we already have higher bids from other companies, you know, big companies that want the building. He ups his offer 1.1, 1.2. He says, the most I could afford is 1.5. They said, we already have an offer for 1.8 million from another institution. Some retail chain wants to come in there. Anyways, he's corresponding with the bank for months and nothing doing. And he's like, it doesn't look like I could afford this. One day, sitting in his office, which overlooks the shopping center, he sees a man pull up with a car. And he walks out, and he's walking towards this building. He's watching him. All of a sudden, he trips on the step up, and he falls down. He goes running out. An older guy with like gray hair. He runs over to him. The guy's a little unconscious. He grabs water from his Chabad house. He comes out. He starts sprinkling water. He wakes him up. The guy's bleeding a little. He says, let me call an ambulance. Calls an ambulance. They come. They patch him up. They say, should we take you to the hospital? He says, I'm fine. I'm fine. The ambulance leaves. The man says, thank you so much. You like saved my life. He says, well, I saw you fall. I came running, of course. He says, listen, if I could ever do anything for you, I'm happy to help you. Anything I could ever do. Here's my card. He hands him his card. He sees his name is Harold White, senior manager at Wells Fargo Bank. He says, what brings you here? He says, well, I'm a manager at the bank. I came to inspect the property because we're about to, you know, put it up and sell it finally. He says, remember, if I could ever help you, any banking matters, call me. He says, you could actually do me a little favor. He says, what? He says, come into my office just for a few minutes. He says, sure. He comes in as a well-dressed guy with a suit and a tie. He pulls out a file this thick with paperwork, correspondence to the bank. He said, I've been corresponding with your bank for months now, trying to buy this property. I have this community. I want to build a preschool. I want to build a synagogue. I want to build a kosher kitchen, a cater. And this would be perfect. I even have designs already, visions, architect drawings, what I'm going to do with this beautiful building. I'm going to have a school and everything. This guy was a Christian. He says, how much could you afford? He says, the most I could afford is $1.5 million because I'm going to need $500,000 to renovate it. This guy, Harold White, says, let me see what I can do. He goes back. Next morning, Rabbi Hershey Bronston comes into his Chabad house. On the fax machine is a contract to buy the building for $1.5 million. He buys the building, renovates it, takes our furniture, puts it in there, and dedicates it. And you know who the guest of honor at the dedication of the Chabad house was? Mr. Harold White, the banker from Wells Fargo, who got a standing ovation from everyone in the audience. Sometimes we think, I can never do this, it's impossible, it's out of my reach. If Hashem has a plan, the Aleph, the one Hashem, always comes before the seven, the course of nature.